The city lights looked blurred through the rain-soaked window of the 39th floor, but for Ava Hartman, it wasn't the storm outside that made her vision tremble. It was the doctor's words echoing relentlessly inside her skull. 3 months, at best. Her life, carefully built through discipline, sacrifices, and the relentless pursuit of success, now felt like a glass tower ready to collapse with a single breath. She had built empires, led thousands, and turned a failing company into a global force, but now she couldn't even steady her own hands. In that moment, standing alone in her skyscraper office, surrounded by awards, city views, and silence, Ava realized that the things she once believed mattered suddenly felt painfully empty, and nothing could save her from the countdown that had begun inside her own body. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that remind us how powerful life can be, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps the channel grow and reach more hearts. Ava had always been known for her strength, cold to some, distant to most, admirable to all. She was the woman who never broke, but that night, when she got into her car, the tears finally came, not as sobs, but as quiet, defeated streams that rolled down her cheeks in surrender. She didn't know where to go, nor who to talk to. Her parents were gone. Her friendships had faded under the weight of her priorities, and romance had been something she'd convinced herself was a distraction for weaker people. The truth was simpler. She had been afraid of being hurt, and so she built a life too busy to let anyone in. Now she was left with the terrifying knowledge that she had no one to say goodbye to, no one to spend her last months with, and no one who would miss her shadow in the halls of her empty mansion. Across the city, at a modest apartment beside a small public park, a single father named Daniel Cole was finishing another exhausting day. His 5-year-old daughter, Lily, had fallen asleep clutching a crayon drawing of the two of them standing under a gigantic sun with crooked smiles. Daniel stood over her, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. Life had not been easy on him. His wife passed away during childbirth complications, leaving him to raise Lily alone. He worked at a small bakery cafe located near Ava's office building, baking before sunrise and serving customers until late afternoon, all while balancing school runs, bills, and the aching loneliness he tried hard to hide. Yet despite everything, Daniel lived with a quiet resilience, a warmth Ava had long forgotten existed. The next morning, Ava forced herself to return to work, determined to maintain the facade of control. But halfway through the morning, her body betrayed her. Lightheaded and disoriented, she stumbled into the bakery cafe next to her building, hoping a cup of tea might steady her. She looked out of place in her immaculate navy suit, expensive heels, and perfect posture amid the cozy warmth of the shop. Daniel noticed her immediately, not as a CEO but as someone who appeared fragile beneath a polished exterior. He offered her a seat and brought warm tea without waiting for her order. She barely noticed him, but she clutched the cup like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. She returned the next day, and the day after that. Always sitting in the same corner, always lost in thoughts that seemed heavier than the world around her. Daniel watched without intruding. He didn't know her name or her story, but he saw pain. He recognized it. Grief had a scent, a posture, a quietness that he had lived with for years. One afternoon, fatigue hit Ava so abruptly that her vision blurred and her breathing turned shallow. Before she could fall, Daniel was already at her side. He guided her gently outside, letting her sit on a bench beneath the shade of a tree. Lily, just out of preschool, noticed the stranger who looked like she was trying very hard not to fall apart. Without hesitation, the little girl approached and placed her tiny hand on Ava's knee. That simple touch, pure, gentle, unfiltered, broke something in Ava's chest, something she had fortified for years. She didn't cry, but her eyes softened, and she whispered a thank you. From that day on, a quiet, unexpected connection began between them. Daniel never asked questions, never tried to pry into her private life. He simply shared small kindnesses, an extra pastry when she looked pale, a warm scarf on a cold morning when she forgot hers, small notes of encouragement that Lily insisted on drawing for the pretty lady with sad eyes. Ava found herself returning not out of habit, but out of need. She felt safe there, in a place where no one expected her to be powerful. Yet every night, the reality of her condition grew heavier. Her treatments were experimental. her body weakening. She'd begun writing letters, one to her board, one to her staff, and one to the world she was preparing to leave. But she couldn't bring herself to write one to Daniel or Lily, though their presence had become the only bright part of her final days. Part of her feared burdening them. Another part feared something deeper, caring too much too late. The turning point came on an evening when the sky was painted with soft blues and grays. Ava had spent hours in meetings trying to hide tremors in her hands. She stopped by the cafe on her way home, her body trembling with exhaustion. Daniel noticed immediately. He led her to a chair and stood back, unsure if she wanted company. But this time, Ava reached out, gripping his wrist lightly. She told him everything. About the diagnosis, the 3 months, the fear, the emptiness, the silence of her mansion echoing louder than her heartbeat. She expected pity. Instead, Daniel simply knelt beside her, his eyes holding the kind of compassion she had forgotten existed in the world. That night, Daniel walked her home. Her mansion, cold, sleek, beautiful, looked more like a museum than a place meant for living. Daniel felt the emptiness of it, the absence of warmth, laughter, and life. Lily, holding Daniel's hand, whispered that the house looked lonely, and those words pierced Ava's soul deeper than any medical report ever had. She invited them inside. It was the first time she let anyone into her private world. From then on, her home slowly began to change. Lily's drawings appeared on the fridge, a child's giggle echoed through the hallways, and Daniel brought homemade meals that filled the house with scents of cinnamon, butter, and warmth. With every passing day, Ava found pieces of her heart waking up from a long, cold sleep. For the first time in years, she felt alive, and that terrified her. How cruel, she thought, to find meaning only when time was slipping away like sand between her fingers. As the weeks passed, her health wavered. Some days she felt strong enough to laugh with Lily in the garden. Other days, she struggled to stand. Daniel never treated her like she was fragile, but he was always there. Quiet, steady, someone she could lean on without feeling weak. He became her anchor in a sea she had been drowning in for far too long. One evening, as the sun faded and street lamps flickered awake, Ava confided in Daniel that she regretted living a life filled with success but empty of love. Daniel listened, his heart tightening. He didn't try to comfort her with false hope. Instead, he told her the truth, that love didn't disappear just because time was short, that sometimes the last chapters could be the most meaningful. As the 3-month mark approached, Ava prepared for the end. She arranged everything, her will, her legacy, her estate. But one night, when she was too weak to stand without help, Daniel made a decision that would change everything. He packed a small bag, lifted her gently into his car, and drove her to a place she had never been before, the small town on the outskirts where he grew. He brought her to a quiet cottage he rented for the weekend, overlooking a field of wildflowers. Ava protested weakly at first, but when she saw the sunrise the next morning, the sky stretching in soft purples and pinks, she understood what he was trying to do. He wanted her last days to be filled not with fear but with peace, beauty, and love. Lily ran barefoot through the field, picking flowers for her. Daniel sat beside her on the porch, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. For the first time since her diagnosis, Ava felt no fear. She felt gratitude, she felt love, she felt alive. The days that followed were some of the most beautiful of her life. They cooked simple meals, watched sunsets, told stories, and laughed softly like people who understood how precious each breath was. Ava wrote a final letter during that time, not to her company, but to Daniel and Lily. She thanked them for reminding her of what truly mattered, for giving her a reason to hope when she had none, and for loving her when she felt unlovable. But life had one more twist waiting for them. When Ava returned to the city for what she believed would be her final appointment, the doctors were baffled. Her condition hadn't worsened. It had stabilized. Something rare, something unexpected. She wasn't cured, but the clock had stopped ticking down. She had time, maybe months, maybe years. No one could explain it, but Ava didn't need scientific validation. She knew what had changed. Love had changed her. Meaning had changed her. Allowing herself to live had changed her. She walked out of the hospital with tears streaming down her face, the sunlight warming her skin like a promise she once believed she didn't deserve. Daniel and Lily were waiting for her in the hallway. When she collapsed into Daniel's arms, it wasn't from weakness, it was from overwhelming relief, gratitude, and the realization that her story wasn't ending. It was beginning. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue bringing emotional stories to life. Before the ending, here is a special request. Please comment below what moment in the story moved you the most. Your words mean more than you know. Ava didn't return to her old life. She stepped away from her throne of glass and steel and built something softer, something truer. She invested in wellness programs for her employees, built shelters for single parents, and created scholarships in Lily's name. She treated life not as a race to win, but a gift to cherish. She chose joy. She chose meaning. She chose love. Daniel didn't become her savior. He simply became her partner, her companion, her second chance at a life she never knew she needed. And Lily, bright, innocent, and full of sunshine, became the light guiding both of them forward. In the end, Ava Hartman didn't measure her life by months anymore. She measured it by moments, quiet mornings, warm meals, soft laughter, shared dreams, and the gentle reminder that even in the darkest times, the smallest act of kindness can save someone's life. And what the single dad did next didn't just leave her in tears.